What's happening, podcasters? My name is Sebastian Rusk, and I help marketers and entrepreneurs just like you launch successful podcasts. In this video, I'm going to give you 4 tips on starting a podcast, and they may not be what you think. Let's get started. So here's some tips for starting a podcast, and they may not be what you had expected. Number 1, I always like to ask people when they say, I want to launch a podcast, my number 1 question is, why? Why do you want to start a podcast? Well, I want to tell a story. I want to get together with some friends because we're really funny, and I've heard some really off-the-wall reasons on wanting to start a podcast. But I always encourage people to get very, very clear on the why. Why do you want to start a podcast? If your reasoning is just because you think you're funny and you've got stuff to talk about, that may not be enough. And that may not be what it takes to actually start a podcast. If you say, listen, I've got this idea to talk about this topic, to create value around this topic, to build a community around this topic, and to push out as much positive, valuable information as possible, then, well, you're on the right track. So figure out, number 1, figure out your why. Why do you want to start a podcast? You'll figure it out. Give it some thought. Next up, number 2, are you actually committed to doing it? Well, of course I am. I came up with the idea. I've got this idea and that idea. I understand that, but are you committed to actually recording the content? Are you committed to actually hosting the interviews? Are you committed to actually promoting the show, talking about it, and spreading your podcast gospel everywhere until you achieve the results you're looking for? Yeah, but what results are those? Well, I'm glad you asked. The results of a podcast should be a strong community in which they decided to follow you, engage with you, listen to your podcast episodes because they find your content valuable and they look forward to more interesting content coming from you. If you think you're going to start a podcast because you're going to get rich, or you think I'm going to start a podcast because I want to monetize it, that is the complete wrong mindset for starting a podcast. Of course you want to monetize your podcast. Of course you want to monetize any piece of content that you may have. But that takes time. You've got to build something first. You've got to build that foundation and that community. And you do that by providing as much valuable information as possible. But before all that happens, you need to be committed to say, you know what, I am committed to 1 episode a month. I'm committed to 2 episodes a month. I'm committed to 4 episodes a month. And please, for the love of all things podcast, keep it realistic. Keep your expectations realistic. We launch podcasts for brands, so I've seen every single excuse, idea, failed idea, gonna start the show, not start the show. There's nothing worse than saying, I'm gonna do something that I really wanna do and then not doing it. So your level of commitment, it must be there. I'm not here to tell you how committed you are or should be. I'm just here to let you know there must be a level of commitment there that you can stick with, that can be realistic so that you can create valuable content and build that community. Next up, keep it simple. Keep it simple. That's right. You don't have to have this grand, show me all the podcast equipment that I need to be able to start my show, and where do I find a podcast studio so that it's glistening and perfect and pristine. And listen, it doesn't have to be that complicated. What you need to do is you need to start simple. What are you going to talk about? How are you going to provide value? When is the show going to go on? What can people expect? How are you going to build the community? Start with the absolute basics. That's why I say if you're going to start simple, I tell every single person that calls me to say, I want to start a podcast. What's the easiest way to do it? The easiest way to do it is right here on this thing, your smart device, your smartphone, your iPhone, or if you have an Android, well, I don't know what to tell you. But your smartphone is a powerful tool to enable you to launch a podcast, especially if you're using an app like Anchor. Anchor is a free app. It also has a desktop solution, and it has everything you need to start a podcast in a very simple way. That's the major key, is that you obviously want to make the process simple, because if it's difficult, our brain automatically goes, nope, not doing it. So you want to be able to utilize tools like Anchor or your phone, where you can just hit record and get your mind out and your truth out and your story out. But you also want to make sure that you keep it simple, okay? Keep it simple, stupid. I don't know that. Yeah, keep it simple. I like that. Calling somebody stupid after that, I never really understood that, but you understand what I'm saying here. Keep it simple. And lastly, my last and final tip for you. That shook my camera a little bit. Be realistic, okay? Be realistic. This all ties into the why, the commitment, and keeping it simple, but you must stay realistic. I can record one episode a month. I can record one interview every quarter. I can get 6 episodes out in 6 months. You come out of the gates wanting to swing and pounding your chest and I'm going to do an episode a week, and then you do 4 episodes and then you're like, I hate this. I don't like recording these anymore. So if you got questions about any of these tips, your why, about your commitment, about keeping it simple, about staying realistic with it, please, by all means, leave a comment below in the comments. I do respond to each and every one of you lovely people. It is my distinct pleasure. Oh, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. That way you'll get all kinds of nifty updates when a new video drops here on the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.